Good morning, children. Welcome back. In today's session, we are going to learn Class 7 Term 2 First Lesson in Social Science, Vijayanagar and Bahmani Kingdoms, Part 3. Come, children, let us learn. Children, in the last two sessions, we discussed about the foundation of the Vijayanagar Empire. The political condition of India in the 14th century provided great opportunities for the rise of new kingdoms in the south. The repressive measures of the temperamental Muslim king Muhammad bin Tughlaq led to the rise of many new independent states. In the south, Vijayanagar and Gulbarga or Bahmani emerged as the two great kingdoms. The Bahmani kingdom spread all over the Maharashtra and partly over Karnataka. Ruled by 18 monarchs, it lasted for nearly 180 years. The state of Vijayanagar continued to flourish for nearly 200 years. Ultimately, Vijayanagar's wealth and prosperity induced the Muslim Deccan kingdoms to launch a combined war against it. Vijayanagara, or the city of victory, was established in the southern Karnataka by two brothers named Harihara and Bukka. Vidyaranya, the head of the Saivite Sringeri Mutt, instructed them to abandon their services to the Tughlaqs and rescue the country from Muslim authority. The new kingdom was called Vidyanagara for a time in honor of the spiritual leader Vidyaranya before it came to be called as Vijayanagara. Four dynasties, Sangama, Saluva, Tuluva and Aravidu, ruled the empire. When King Bukka died, he had left behind a large territory to his son Harihara II to rule. His impressive achievement in securing the Belagaum and Goa from the Bahmani kingdom. Harihara's son Devaraya I defeated Gajapati king of Odisha. His successor Devaraya II was the greatest ruler of the Sangama dynasty. After Devaraya II, Vijayanagar Empire went through a crisis. The able commander of Vijayanagar army, Saluva Narasimha, making use of this situation, declared himself the emperor after murdering the last ruler of Sangama dynasty, Viruprakasharaya II. But the Saluva dynasty founded by Saluva Narasimha came to an end with his death. When Narasanayaka, his able general, seized power, it ushered in the Tuluva dynasty. And Krishnadevaraya, who reigned for 20 years, was the most illustrious rulers of the Tuluva dynasty. Krishnadevaraya was an able ruler, a great builder. He constructed temple gateways or gopuras called Roya Gopuram. He imported large number of horses from Arabia and Iran, which came in ships to Vijayanagar ports on the west coast. He had good relationship with the Portuguese and the Arabian traders, which increased the empire's income through customs. He was a great patron for art and literature. 8 eminent luminaries in literature known as the Ashtadigvajas adorned his court. Alasani Peddanna was the greatest of them all. Another notable figure was the Tenali Ramakrishna. Krishnadevaraya was succeeded by his younger brother Achyutadevaraya. After the uneventful reign of Achyutadevaraya, his successor Venkata I, Sadasivaraya, a minor, ascended the throne. The sultans of Deccan kingdom succeeded in forming a league to fight the Vijayanagar Empire. The combined forces of the enemies met at Talikota in 1565, and in the ensuing battle, the Battle of Talikota, Vijayanagar was defeated. There were terrible human slaughter and pillaging the capital city of Hampi. All the buildings, palaces and temples were destroyed, sculptures and carvings desecrated. The glorious Vijayanagar Empire ceased to exist. Ramaraya was killed on the battlefield and his brother Tirumala Devaraya managed to escape along with the king Sadasivaraya. Tirumala Devaraya moved to Chandragiri carrying all the treasures and wealth that he could salvage. There he began the rule of the Aravidu dynasty. We also discussed about the Vijayanagar administration. The empire was divided into different mandalams, nadus, sthalas and gramas. And each province or the mandalam had a mandaleshwara, a governor. The lowest unit of administration was a village. Each village had a Grama Sabha and Gauda, a village headman. The army of Vijayanagar consisted of infantry, cavalry and elephant corps. They used firearms and they were the most feared armies in India. It was one of the richest states then known to the world. Several foreign visitors who visited empire during the 15th and the 16th centuries left behind glowing accounts of its splendor and wealth. They were given great importance to agriculture. Abdul Razzaq, who visited Krishnadevaraya's court, records huge tank built with the help of Portuguese masons. Channels were constructed and the city was well stocked with a variety of agricultural goods. There were numerous cottage industries like textiles, mining and metallurgy, and they were regulated by the guilds. There were guilds for each group of tradesmen and craftsmen. Under the patronage of Vijayanagar rulers, religious as well as secular books were written in different languages such as Sanskrit, Telugu, Kannada and Tamil. Krishnadevaraya wrote Amukta Malyada, an epic in Telugu and also in Sanskrit drama Jambavati Kalyanam. Children, in this session we will discuss about the Bahmani kingdom. Children, now we will learn about the Bahmani kingdom. It was the first independent Islamic kingdom in South India and one of the great medieval Indian kingdoms. It was founded as a revolt against Muhammad bin Tughlaq of the Delhi Sultanate by Zafar Khan of Turkish origin, who took the title Alauddin Hasan Bahman Shah, establishing a strong rule with nearly 18 kings for about 200 years. The southern king Krishnadevaraya defeated the last ruler of Bahmani Empire, after which it got disintegrated into 5 states around 1518 AD, collectively known as the Deccan Sultanates and individually as Ahmednagar, Golconda, Bidar, Berar and Bijapur. The Bahmani kingdom stretched from the Arabian Sea to Bay of Bengal, included the whole of Deccan up to the river Krishna with its capital at Gulbarga. Children, Alauddin Hasan, also known as Hasan Gangu, seized Daulatbad and declared himself Sultan under the title of Bahman Shah in 1347. In his effort, this Turkish officer of Daulatbad or Devagiri was supported by other military leaders in rebellion against the Sultan of Delhi, Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So you can see he declared himself a Sultan with the title Bahman Shah, with the support of the other military leaders who were in rebellion against the Sultan of Delhi, Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Alauddin Hasan Bahman Shah Gangu was a great military general and able administrator. He was a brave soldier and a good fighter and is said to have taken part in several battles. His ambition was to sit on the throne of Delhi. He managed to win the lands of Gulbarga, Goa, Kolhar, Kolhapur, Mandu, etc. He never showed cruelty on any Tughlaq Amir or any other leader. He returned almost all victorious lands as Jagirs and appointed many people at the highest position, irrespective of their religion. He was the one who eradicated tax on food grains and cattle. In 2 years, Alauddin Hasan Bahman Shah shifted his capital to Gulbarga. His successors but found it difficult to organize a stable kingdom even around Gulbarga. So the capital was shifted again to Bidar in 1429. Children, there were 18 monarchs of the Bahmani dynasty. Alauddin Hasan ruled for 11 years. His attempt to exact an annual tribute from the state of Warangal, the Reddy kingdoms of Rajamundry and Kondevide led to frequent wars. So, children, Alauddin Hassan tried to get tribute from the states of Warangal and the Reddy kingdoms of Rajamundry and Kondaividu, and there were frequent war among them as they were not willing to pay the tribute to them. Alauddin Brahman Shah divided the kingdom into 4 territorial divisions called as Tarafs. It was called as Tarafs, Tarafs, Tarafs. So, the kingdom was divided into 4 territorial divisions and it was called as Tarafs. And a governor was appointed for each of the province, as he had divided it into divisions with governor for each of the divisions. The divisions were called as Tarafs. Children, Bahman Shah spent most of his reign consolidating a kingdom in the Deccan and strengthening his hold over those Muslim nobles who chose to remain there rather than to join the Tughlaq in northern India. Hence, he adopted the 4 territorial divisions or Tarafs established by Muhammad bin Tughlaq for his own administration. Working outward from his capital, he was able to establish the authority over the western half of Deccan Plateau and impose an annual tribute upon the Hindu state of Warangal, over which few wars were fought. He commanded an army solely responsible for the administration and for the collection of revenue. He had an army whose work was to collect the revenue and was responsible for the administration, as his kingdom was divided into 4 provinces. System worked well under a powerful king. It was working well if the king was powerful, but its dangers became apparent during the reign of a weak ruler, as they had complete control over the territories under them, which they were entitled to collect the tax. The system was working smoothly when the king was powerful, but as the ruler was weak, the dangers started to creep up as they tried to establish themselves as the kings. Children, Muhammad Shah I succeeded Bahman Shah. Who was successor of Bahman Shah? It was Muhammad Shah I. He waged 2 wars with Vijayanagar but couldn't gain anything from it. He was interested in waging war, as they were neighbors. He was interested in waging war against Vijayanagar, but they were strong, so he couldn't succeed. But his attack on Warangal in 1363 earned him a large property and wealth. Children, in his war against Vijayanagar and Telangana or Warangal, Muhammad Shah made use of newly organized artillery to defeat an army much larger than his own. His 2 wars with Vijayanagar gained him little, but his attack on Warangal in 1363 bought him a large indemnity, including the turquoise throne and the town of Golconda with its dependencies. He was able to capture the fortress of Golconda and he was able to acquire his turquoise throne, which thereafter became the throne of the Bahmani kings. The turquoise throne was intended towards the Delhi Sultanate, but he was able to acquire it. It was Muhammad Shah who laid the strong foundation for the kingdom, and his administration, his system of government continued even after the Bahmani kingdom disintegrated into 5 different sultanates. It was he who built 2 beautiful mosques at Gulbarga. The 2 mosques were, one was Jama Masjid and Shah Bazar Masjid. The Jama Masjid is a mosque within the Gulbarga fort. It takes the style of a Persian architecture. The architecture is followed the model of famous Cordova Mosque in Spain. Of the 2 mosques, one, the Great Mosque, was completed in 1367 and measures 216 by 16 feet and has a roofed courtyard. It is one of the first roofed mosques in India. A large number of Arabs, Turks, and notably Persians began to immigrate to the Deccan, many of them at the invitation of Sultan Muhammad. So children, here the Muhammad invited people, different Arabs, Turks and Persians to come and settle down in the Deccan region. And they came and they got settled down here, and they had a strong influence on the development of the Muslim culture during the subsequent generations. They came down to India and they started settling down and getting married, and thus there was development of Muslim culture in the coming generations. Children, on the picture you can find Golconda Fort. Golconda in Telugu means Shepherd's Hill. Golconda is renowned for the diamonds found on the southeast of Kollur mine near the Kollur. And at that time, India had the only known diamond mines in the world. The region has produced some of the world's most famous diamonds, including the Kohinoor colorless diamond, the Blue Hope, the Pink Daria Noor, and White Regent. You can also find the Gulbarga Mosque in the picture. The Jama Masjid or Jama Mosque of Gulbarga is regarded as one of the best examples of mosque architecture in South Asia. The arch designs of Jama Masjid reflects the interiors of the Spanish Mosque of Hyderabad. These are the only two mosques in India which have the interiors similar to the great Cathedral Mosque of Cordoba in Spain. Children, turquoise is a semi-precious stone, sky blue in color. You can see the picture there. Beautiful one. Turquoise throne is one of the bejeweled royal suites of the Persian kings, described in Firdausi's Shah Nama. So Firdausi is describing about the throne made of the turquoise stones, which was a royal seat of the Persian kings. Children, it is the Golconda Fort, which is located about 11 kilometers from Hyderabad on a hill 120 meters high. The fort is popular for its acoustic architecture. That is, it is an effective security measure in those days. If the sound of the clapping of hands at Fateh Darwaze can be clearly heard at Bala Hizar, the highest point situated about 1 kilometer away in Golconda Fort. That is, if you stand exactly in the center beneath the arches and clap your both hands, then a huge sound is produced and listened to a very large distance. The fort used to have a good supply of both hot and cold water. It is also believed that there is a secret underground tunnel that leads from the Darbar Hall and ends in one of the palaces at the foot of the hill. Now we will learn about the successors of Muhammad Shah. Mujahid, the son of Muhammad Shah, ascended the throne. Who was the son? Mujahid. He was the successor of Muhammad Shah. However, on his return to Gulbarga from the expedition against Vijayanagar, I told you children there were so many expeditions against the Vijayanagar Empire, and on his return from Gulbarga from the expedition against the Vijayanagar Empire, he was assassinated, and the nephew of the conspirator Daud, the uncle of Muhammad, was enthroned in 1378 as Muhammad II. He was killed, and the one who conspired against it, Daud, the uncle of Muhammad, was enthroned in 1378, and he was named as Muhammad II. Muhammad II's reign was peaceful, and the Sultan spent much of his time building his court as a center of culture and learning. He didn't have many expeditions, but he spent his time in building his court as a center of culture and learning. He wanted to end culture and learnings flourished during his reign. There were constant wars between the Bahmani and the Vijayanagar rulers over the fertile Tungabhadra Krishna region. And the threat also came from the north, especially from Malwa and Gujarat. The noteworthy ruler, after 8.5 decades, that is 1377 to 1463, was Muhammad III, who ruled between 1463 and 1482. Muhammad III reigned for 19 years. For most of these years, the lieutenant of the kingdom was Mahmud Gawan, the most notable personality of the time. Children, Muhammad Gawan was the prime minister in Bahmani Sultanate of Deccan. He was well versed in Islamic theology, Persian, mathematics, and was a poet and a prose writer. When Muhammad III, aged 9, succeeded the rule, Muhammad Gawan served as a prime minister. He built a great university in Bidar, which is known as Mahmud Gawan Madrasa. We will learn about him in coming up places. Children, the king was a supreme power in the state, and he was a ruler, judge, administrator, military leader, sometimes even his authority. There were 8 ministers of the Bahmani state. The first one being Wakil us Sultana. Wakil, Vakil, Wakil, USS, Sultana, Saltana, or the lieutenant of the kingdom, who was the immediate subordinate authority of the sovereign. That is, he was just in charge of the next to the emperor. Next one was Peshwa, 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 who was associated with the lieutenant of the kingdom. Then there was a minister who supervised the work of all the other ministers, somewhat like a prime minister. It was Waziri Kul, Wazirikull, Waziri Kul. Then there was a minister of finance, Amir-i Jumla, Amir-i Jumla, Amirij-Jumla, Amir-i Jumla, finance minister. So you have Wakil Sultana, then Peshwa, then Waziri Kul, and Amir-i Jumla. Then you had the Nazir, 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 the assistant minister of finance. Then Wazir-i Ashraf, Wasir, Wazir-i Ashraf. He was a minister of foreign affairs. Then there was a chief of police and city magistrate in the capital. It was Kotwal, Kotwal. Kotwal was a chief of police and the city magistrate. They also had a chief justice and minister of religious affairs and endowments. That was Saad-i Jahan. Saad-i Jahan was a chief justice or minister of religious affairs. So the various ministers were Wakil Sultana, Peshwa, Waziri Kul, Amir-i Jumla, Nazir, Wasir-i Ashraf, Kotwal, Saad-i Jahan. Wakil Sultana was the lieutenant of the kingdom. Peshwa was the assistant to the lieutenant of the kingdom. Waziri Kul supervised all the work of other ministers. She was like a prime minister. Amir-i Jumla was a minister of finance. And Nazir was there to assist the minister for finance. Wazir-i Ashraf was a minister of foreign affairs. And there was a chief of police and city magistrate in the capital, that was Kotwal, and the chief justice and minister of religious affairs and endorsement were called as Saad-i Jahan. Children, you have already learned about Mahmud Gawan. He was a prime minister. Now we will learn in detail about such an important personality during that time. He was a Persian by birth, and he was well versed in Islamic theory, Persian, as well as mathematics. He was a learned man. He was also a poet and a prose writer. And he was good in language, he was also a poet and a writer. The Bahmani king Alauddin Hasan Bahman Shah, greatly impressed by his wisdom and military genius, recruited him. The king was impressed by his brilliance and wisdom, so he recruited him. It was the Sultan Humayun Shah who was impressed by his military genius, had taken him in his service. After Humayun's death, he became the guardian of his minor prince, Nizam Shah. When the young Sultan died and his brother Muhammad III, aged 9, succeeded him, Muhammad Gawan served as a prime minister. It was Muhammad Gawan who extended the kingdom. He conquered Kanchi during the course of the campaign against Vijayanagar. He fought successful war against the rulers of Konkan, Sangameshwara, Orissa and Vijayanagar. He was able to capture Goa and Dabol, the best part of Vijayanagar Empire. Gawan was known for his military campaigns as well as administrative reforms. There was an officer in charge of the entire administration of the division and was known as the king's deputy. Muhammad Gawan subdivided each of the tariffs into two, so that the kingdom was divided into 8 divisions, and it was to control more closely the powers of the regional administrators. He used Persian chemists to teach the Bahmani army about the preparation and the use of gunpowder. And in his war against Vijayanagar kings in Belgaum, he used gunpowder. In order to tighten the administration and to curb the power of the provincial governors, who functioned as virtual kings, Gawan divided the existing 4 provinces of the Bahmani Sultanate into 8, so as to limit the area under the rule of each governor and to make the provincial administration more manageable. So it was his brain which made the division of the 4 divisions into 8, so that they could have more control over the administration. The other administrative reforms were he placed some districts in the provinces directly under the central administration. It was directly controlled by the king. Gawan sought to curtail the military powers of the governors by allowing them to occupy only 1 fort in their territory. So the governors were allowed to occupy only 1 fort. The Sultan kept the other forts under his direct control. All the other forts in that area were under the control of Sultan. The governors were allowed to occupy only 1. Royal officers who were given land assignment as pay, and they were made accountable to the Sultan for the income and their expenditure. So whatever income and expenditure they had incurred, they were accountable. The account had to be settled to the king. Only then it was smooth functioning was possible. So to control the power of the governors, he had some provinces under the central administration, and also the governors were allowed to occupy only 1 fort in their territory. Others were belonging to the king under the direct control of the Sultan. The royal officers who were paid as land assignment, who were given as revenue, they were made accountable for the income and the expenditure incurred. Children, during their time, there were 2 factions of nobles, the Deccanis, that is the local origin, and Afakis, that is a foreign origin. Mahmud was an Afaki, so he faced many challenges. The administrative reforms introduced by Gawan improved the efficiency of the government, but curtailed means limited, the powers of the provincial chiefs who were mostly Deccans. So the already existing rivalry among the nobles, such as the Deccanis and the Pardesis, that is foreigners, further intensified and conflicts broke out. Children, plots were hatched to topple him by the Deccanis. The nobles forged a document from him. In a drunken state, the Sultan ordered to execute him. And with him departed all the cohesion and power of the Bahmani Sultan. Later, the Sultan regretted his decision and buried his prime minister with honors. Despite his old age, he was executed, and just an year after the death of Mahmud, Sultan also died at the age of 29. Gawan became a victim of this tussle for power. Deccani nobles grew jealous of his success and considered him as an obstacle to their rise. They manipulated by forging a letter to implicate Gawan in a conspiracy against the Sultan. Sultan, who himself was jealous, was not happy with Gawan's dominance, ordered his execution. Before winding up the session, let us have a recap of what we learned in this session. We learned about the foundation of the Bahmani kingdom. Alauddin Hasan, also known as Hasan Gangu, seized Daulatbad and declared himself Sultan under the title of Bahman Shah. In his effort, this Turkish officer of Daulatbad was supported by other military leaders in rebellion against the Sultan of Delhi, Muhammad bin Tughlaq. In 2 years, Bahman Shah shifted his capital to Gulbarga. His successor found it difficult to organize a stable kingdom even around the Gulbarga. So the capital was shifted to Bidar in 1429. There were 18 monarchs of the Bahmani dynasty. Alauddin Hasan ruled for 11 years. He divided the kingdom into 4 territorial divisions called as tarafs, and there was a governor appointed for each of the province. He commanded an army and who was solely responsible for the administration and for the collection of revenue. That system worked well under a powerful king, but its dangers became apparent during the reign of a weak ruler. Muhammad Shah succeeded Bahman Shah. He waged 2 wars with Vijayanagar but couldn't gain anything from it. But his attack on Warangal in 1363 earned him a large property and wealth, including the important fortress of Golconda and his treasured turquoise throne, which thereafter became the throne of the Bahmani kings. Muhammad Shah laid the foundation for the kingdom. His system of government continued even after the Bahmani kingdom disintegrated into 5 sultanates. He built 2 mosques at Gulbarga. Mujahid, the son of Muhammad Shah, ascended the throne. However, on his return to Gulbarga from the expedition against the Vijayanagar, he was assassinated and the nephew of the conspirator, Daud, the uncle of Muhammad, was entombed in 1378 as Muhammad II. His reign was peaceful and the Sultan spent much of his time building his court as a center of culture and learning. As with any river basin, the fertile Tungabhadra and Krishna region was a theme for constant war between the Bahmani and the Vijayanagar rulers. There was also threat from the north, from the Malwa and the Gujarat. The noteworthy ruler after 8.5 decades was Muhammad III. He reigned for 19 years. And for most of these years, the lieutenant to the kingdom was Muhammad Gawan, the most notable personality of the time. There were 8 ministers in the Bahmani state. They are Wakil Sultana, Peshwa, Waziri Kul, Amir-i-Jumla, Nazir, Wasir-i-Ashraf, Kotwal and Saad-i-Jahan. Mahmud Gawan was a Persian by birth. He was well versed in Islamic theory, Persian and mathematics. Also, he was a poet and a prose writer. The Bahmani king Alauddin Hasan Bahman Shah was impressed by his wisdom and military genius, recruited him. He served as a prime minister under Mahmud III and contributed extensively to the development of the Bahmani kingdom. It was he who trained the Bahmani army about the preparation and use of the gunpowder. He tightened the administration, and to curb the power of the provincial governors, he divided the Bahmani Sultanate into 8 provinces. And some of the districts in the provinces were directly under the central administration. And he allowed only 1/4 to be occupied by the governors. And the officers who were given the land assignment as pay were made accountable for the income and expenditure. Gawan became a victim of tussle of power between the Deccanis and the Pardesis. The Sultan, who was manipulated by the Deccanis and was not happy with the Gawan's dominance, ordered his execution. He was a genius who built great universities in Bidar, which is known as Mahmud Gawan Madrasa. Being a linguist and a mathematician, he chose Scientists, philosophers, and religious seers created a distinguished religious school. The library had around 3,000 manuscripts. Children, in the next session, we will discuss about the decline of the Bahmani kingdom and the contribution of Bahmani sultans. Now it's worksheet time. Worksheet number 3. Choose the correct answer. Name the Bahmani king who was a linguist and a poet. Name the Bahmani king who was a linguist and a poet. Options are Alauddin Hasan Shah, Muhammad I, Sultan Firoz, Mujahid. Roman number 2. Fill in the blanks. Mahmud Gawan used dash chemist to teach the preparation and use of gunpowder. Mahmud Gawan used dash chemist to teach the preparation and use of gunpowder. Roman number 3. Answer in 1 or 2 sentences. Question number 1. Discuss the career and achievements of Mahmud Gawan. Discuss the career and achievements of Mahmud Gawan. Copy the assignment as worksheet 3 in a rough note. Learn it well and write a test and WhatsApp me the answers. With that, we wind up today's session, my dear children. Thank you for watching the video. For more videos and solutions, please visit and subscribe our YouTube channel.